Okay, good morning, everybody. Those who are now with us and those are going to see it later. We are in Parashat Shoftim, judges. Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol sharech. We should put on our gates judges and policemen. Why? What's the reason? First of all, for the simple reason that if you want to have normal life, you need to have, if you have a problem with somebody, you have to find the solution as quickly as possible. And that's the reason why the Torah is telling us that we have to put in every town, we have to put a court, not only a court for the whole town. If, for example, in the same town there are 3 tribes. So for those 3 tribes, you need 3 courts. Court for each one of the tribes, because the attitude is different. It's very interesting, the way the Torah looks at things. Now, let's say, for example, if there is one tribe that lives in 3 towns, in 3 cities. So it's enough 1 or you need 3? No, you need to have both. You need in every town court. And if there is more than 1 tribe in the town, you need more courts. And the idea is that to have a real good judgment, because if you are from a certain place and you have a certain attitude, and let's say, for example, a different culture, we all know that sometimes a behavior that can be translated to a good thing in other societies, it could be translated to bad things. And here we're not talking about different societies, but still it's like, in Hebrew slang, for example, I always remember this. I had family from the state. They came for a wedding, and the girl was going into shops to buy clothes. So she wanted to buy a dress for the wedding, and she comes back crying to her mother. He says, "Mom, why are you crying?" She says, "Don't ask. Every shop I'm coming in, they say to me, chaval al hazman. I'm putting the dress on, say chaval al hazman. What is chaval al hazman?" She translated it to English. It's a waste of time. But really, what the seller wanted to do is, it's unbelievable beautiful. So that's slang. In other words, if you come now to somebody that doesn't know this slang, who says, this is really humiliation. You humiliated the girl. You tell her that's a waste of time, like it's not good on you. And every place she goes, everything is not good on me. So she feels ready. She feels like humiliated. That's not a way to talk with people. Chaval al hazman, it's a waste of time. But what really the seller said, it's unbelievable, beautiful. Chaval al hazman, it's so good. But you have to know this slang. And that's exactly the same what's happening here. The Torah is telling us each one of the tribes got a different dialect, a different thing. So in order to have a right judgment, you need to have for each one of the tribes a different judge. Okay, but we are now standing. This is the simple idea of behind the Shoftim v'Shotrim. There is another gates. Why is it gates? Shoftim v'Shotrim titen lecha b'chol sharecha. Shotrim v'Shotrim titen lecha b'kol arecha. You should put judges and policemen in all the cities. Why in all the gates? What does it mean gates? So one of the explanations, simple explanation, that in those days the court was in the entrance to the town, because it was easy. Everybody knew the court is in the entrance. When you go into town, at the gate, there where the court is. But here we want to look a little deeper. Gates are, the Mom Slonim says, gates are the gates of the year. For example, now we are going into the gate of the new year. Elul is the gate of Tishrei, of the new year. There are also gates of certain stages in life. You get born, you have bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, you get married, you have children, you have grandchildren. Each one of those stages is a gate. Now, when you go in the gate in the right way, then you will have everything much easier. And when you go in the gate, one of the most important idea of gates is the gate of yourself. The mouth, the nose, the eyes, the ear. What are you letting in your gates? And here, there is something that I must tell you. I think I told you in the past. Sometimes we let something in that is going to damage us severely. There was a firm, a family firm. in Petach Tikva, very fair. I'm not going to go into any more details. And they had a very good business. The business was getting better and better, was developing, and they needed to have an accountant like in the business. It wasn't enough accountant outside the business, needed an accountant inside the business. So they took this young accountant, and a few years, he got the ideas, he was very good, and on the way, he got very friendly with one of the members of the family, a farm member, which is what's like a very, very small part of the business and in his end, very small. And together, they decided to go against the family and take the business off. And how did they do it? Very simple. The accountant knew all the secrets. So he had a meeting and he told them, you see, we want a part of the business and we want a big part and we want you out of the business, going to pay you, they pay them nothing. And they said, wow, Mapitom, we don't want to go out. This is our business. We build it. He says, you know, if you're not going to do what we want, I know this and that, and I'm going to go to authorities and you know what's going to happen. In other words, he threatened them because he knew the secrets, and part of those secrets, well, you need to keep them for yourself and not go public with them, and definitely not to the tax people. So they didn't have any option, and they gave them the business. In other words, you have to be very careful who you're letting in. Yetzer Hara is very, very clever. He finds the way to go in, and when he's in, you're already in trouble. That's why when you go to, let's say, facilities from the army, top secrets facilities, you're not allowed to go in. And if you get a permission to go in, you have to go through tests and checks, and they check you and you have to take everything out of your pockets. Definitely, you don't go with a phone in. Why? Because they don't want you to spy or to find secrets. And there are places you're not allowed to go in, even if you who know what. And this is exactly what the Torah is telling us, especially now, Chodesh Elul. Be aware, be very careful who are you letting in. Keep your gates. Look where you should look. Don't let your eyes let things see things that you shouldn't see. Don't put your nose where you shouldn't be. Don't open your mouth for things also to getting out. Also, Lashon Hara don't talk. The gates have to be kept. Also what's going in and also what's going out. So now we understand. This is Chodesh Elul, Chodesh HaSlicha v'Rachamim. And if we want to get to the level of doing tshuva and really getting close to God, first of all, we have to clean ourselves. Like you go in a canyon, you go to a mall, and they check you that you don't take anything in that you're not allowed to take in. And also now with the Corona, we learned that you have to go with mask and also other things. And otherwise, you cannot go into places. You haven't got the green pass. You cannot go into places. That's the same thing. Imagine to yourself, we are now going into the new year. How are you going in? So in the gate, you stop. You check yourself. And whatever you have to leave out, leave out. And only what you are allowed to take in, you take in, and then you go in your right foot into the new year. You keep your gates very careful in this month. Don't let anything go into your gates unless it's a good thing. And be aware of Yetzer Hara that sometimes he can play the pitch, play the game, and show you like he's good, he's nice. Oh, but it's a good thing. Be aware, be very careful. And remember, as the story I told you, in the physical world, it's much worse in the spiritual world. So the Torah tells you, you know what? You just have to find the right guy, the right Rebbe, the right person that is going to lead you the way. And when you find this guy, the Torah tells you, you should not go left or right without listening to this rabbi or to this Dolador or to this leader. Of course, we're talking about spiritual leaders, about real leaders, not like those leaders that they stand and they take out and they promise you promises, but then whatever they said is nothing. Their gates are open, completely open to Yetzer Hara, from inside and from outside. That's not the issue. That's not what we want. So how do you find the guy who is going to show you the way? Every rabbi can do this? We all know, definitely not. If somebody has a long beard and a big hat on his head, and he wears clothes of a rabbi, it doesn't make him a rabbi. A rabbi is something from inside. A rabbi must be something through. And this is, I think I told you, the Admor Misadigura is a guy I met once in my life. Zecher Tzadik Livracha. He died last year. Once in my life I met him, and he left an impression on me for life. And it was a few years ago when he already had the illness, and he needed a good chair to sit. And his Hasidim came to me, and we sold him a chair that we bring orthopedic, very good chairs, and I sold him one of the good chairs. Now, because Admor Sadigura is a great rabbi and very famous, so me and my son went to his place to show him how the chair functions. We don't do this usually, of course. We came there, and you know, Admor Misadigura is got a lot of Hasidim. Everything is fancy, and he takes us in his private elevator. He had a private elevator where only he and those who are very close to him go. All the Hasidim looked at us like we are celebrities. And he took us, and he was so friendly. He doesn't know us. He was talking with us like he's our friend. And we had a question to ask. And by the way, the question had to do something with my son having children. And Baruch Hashem, I must tell you, on Shabbos, 4 o'clock, we had our first grandchild from Netanel, for my son, waiting 7 years for this baby girl, Baruch Hashem. And we also got a blessing for the Admor Sadigura last year for this. But he was sitting with us in his library, private library, and learning with us about the issue that we asked him, taking book out and sitting with us like we are his chavruta, like we are his best friends, his family. And so nicely. Now, this guy suffering, and he was talking so nicely to us. And I said, this is a guy that you take as a son. This is a real Rebbe. This is a real guy that you listen to him, and whatever he says, you do. And later on, after he died, somebody published a few things that he wrote. And for example, look the way this Admor looks at education. He was saying in very interesting things. He says, sometimes we found ourselves getting very angry on our children. And it looks like we hate them. But the real truth is, why is it happening? Why is it so aggravating us? Because we love them? Yes. But there is something else. We see in our children what is really in us. In other words, our nature goes to our children. And sometimes what we see, we don't like. And it's so frustrating that this is really our problem, so we get angry. And we have to remember at those moments, our children, our grandchildren, they look at us. We are their role model. And we have to remember, always remember this. And it doesn't matter what you see in front of our festival, take it, it's you really. And when we talk about this, take it in the right proportion and remember, whatever you do, they look up to you. And when you want to rebuke your son, do it in the best way you can. Do it gently, definitely not shouting. God gave us a precious present, children, precious. And you can ask my son, 7 years waiting for this baby girl, Ezra Baruch Hashem, how precious it is, this present from God. So behave accordingly. This is a present that God gave us to look after, to show the right way. And this is why we need to be a sample. For example, sometimes parents come home and they know they're in the middle of the day, they have a lot of things on their head, and their child comes from kindergarten or from the first classes of school. Father, mother, I want to show you what I did in the kindergarten. And you look, yes, very nice. And you go on. What do you think? The children are stupid? For example, last Thursday we had our from the other son. I had my grandchild Emily, and she, when I came home from shul, she had pictures for me that she drew, paintings. I paint, so she once said, Grandpa, I paint like you. And I looked at it and I realized how excited she is. Now I could say, wow, yeah, nice and go on. No, I took the pictures and I looked and said, whoa, what nice lines you did here. And she was so happy and so proud. This is a matter of attitude. And this is something we have to put in our mind. And this is the way to educate. Nevertheless, sometimes a child's got problems and he wants to talk. With who is he going to talk? There was this guy, he was a very busy, a businessman, also did a lot of good to people. And he was always on the phone helping people and doing his business. And you know, the child always wanted to speak with him. He said, okay, yes, Moshe, yes, but it wasn't this. One day, he gets a phone call. And he answers the phone, yes. Says, Father, it's Moshe. He says, Moshe, what are you doing on the phone? You're in the next room. He says, yes, Father, I want to talk with you. And I understand that if I want to talk to you, I have to phone you. We shouldn't get to this point. And it doesn't matter how busy we are. Our children, our grandchildren, they want our attention. So give it to them. This is one of the things that you have to do. You want attention from God. You want to do tshuva. You want to love God. You want God to love you. Love your children. Show them your love. Take the time and show them. And sometimes they have difficult times. And you have to understand, even us, when we have difficult times, we want to talk with somebody. And if somebody will talk with us, he's telling here a story about somebody who had really big problems. And he was talking with him and he was listening to him. And then he told me, tell me, what did you help him? No, we really didn't give him any advice because he couldn't help him. But I said, did I help him? He says, you don't realize. I had this burden on myself. Like it was heavy. And when I talked it, like I felt like I'm giving it to you, I feel much lighter. I feel released. And how true it is. So those are things that we go in with life and we don't think about it. And we have to understand, everybody is the whole world. And this is the time. This is the time to open our gates from one side and then close them from the other side. To open them for all the good that we can take and give, open and close. And if something looks fishy, don't let it in. It starts with a small thing, but the minute it's in, you let it in your gates, who knows what's going to happen? It's like you let somebody to a top security facility go in and he took pictures of something that is going to make a big damage, chas v'shalom. But if you keep your gates, especially now, Chodesh Elul, Chodesh Hava Rachamim, this is the month that we have to look and understand and realize how important it is. And you know what we have to worry most from those who are close to us, because they have an influence on us. And sometimes we have to be very careful with this thing. The Torah tells us, Tamim tiyeh Hashem Elokecha, should be innocent. But innocent in Hebrew, Tamim, doesn't mean that you or I, people can play around with you. Tamim means to being whole, to be whole with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, to be connected in the right way, to be fulfilled with the right way, to be whole, to be completed with your inside and outside together. Not that you say something from outside and you don't think in the inside. For example, we all know sometimes when we talking about education, when we're talking with our kids, sometimes something very interesting happens. You know, the kids sometimes they say what they have, whatever they see and hear at home, which is also something to think. And sometimes we don't want them to say what they saw or what they want to see or what they want to say. We don't want to, so we tell them, no, you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't say this. So what should I say? You should say something else. In other words, we teach them to lie. Or we teach them not to be innocent, not to be tamim, not to be completed with the inside and the outside. In other words, they will learn to talk like our Politicians talk from the outside and mean nothing from the inside. Talk what you don't think and think what you don't talk. In other words, that's not the way. You should talk and say what you feel inside. Take the inside outside. That your outside is going to be like the inside like the outside, and not otherwise. You don't stand and say things that you don't mean. That's a part of the right education. And unfortunately, we all know sometimes we do those things. So we have to be careful. To be innocent with God. That's the idea. To know and realize that we are complete with our belief and nothing can go inside us and have this influence, especially not sometimes family that go in the wrong way. What do you do with them? It happens in life. That people think, maybe they even think they're right. And they come to you, and it can be your brother, your sister, your children, your grandchildren. It can be a lot of people. You have to be careful. It can be good friends. So the Torah tells you, you have the gates. Be aware. Like this family business, I can never forget this picture. I knew the family. I knew the business. Good people. And they built a beautiful business. And to take this business from them in the way that this guy did, they trusted him. They took him in. And we have to understand it starts with small things, like, and with this we'll end our shiur today. A few years ago, I've been in Canada, in Toronto, and I met one of the leaders of the Jewish community. He was from a conservative shiur. They have a Reform community, a conservative community, and of course an Orthodox community. And they said that they have very good relationship. He showed us a shiur, I think 3,000 people. Unbelievable, huge shiur. The interesting thing is, it looks exactly like our shiur. It has like the first floor, and they had the second floor for the women. But then he was talking with us and telling them what is conservative, and he told us, you know how we start? And he wasn't really so happy about it. He says, we started like, what you see, we call it in Hebrew, dati light religion. In other words, they said, we are Orthodox, but we don't want to be very strict. So we are light Orthodox. That's the idea of conservative. We're keeping the mitzvahs, but you know, we're not very particular about things. Says, you see, it all started that we have a women's section and men's section. And then one day the women said, why should we sit up there and the men down here? We should all sit together. So they put them the right side on the left side, and there was a mechitza even in the middle in the beginning. Then the mechitza fell down, and then they started mingle, and then they got to the point that they are exactly like the Reforms. He didn't like the idea, but you know, that's what it is. And this is exactly what I'm just giving an example of what happens if you are letting something, even if it looks good in the beginning, but it's fishy. And you know, deep inside us, we know exactly what is right and what is wrong. Deep inside us, we know who to choose that is going to lead us the way. So this is what we like the Admor Misanigua. We know it deep inside. But, you know, Yetzer Hara is there, and he knows how to trick us. And sometimes he tricks us in a very small thing. And this is exactly the story of the conservative. And it's exactly the story of this business. And it's exactly of a lot of stories in our life. When we let something small go into our gates, and look what happens. So the Torah is telling us, Shoftim veshotrim titen lecha bechol shoarecha. You should put guards, judges, policemen on your gates. Don't let anything go in that is not the right thing. And this is an important lesson for all of us. So I wish for all of us, especially now in Chodesh Elul. And you know what we have to do? The Rambam says something beautiful. You know, to love God, you think, wow, it's a difficult thing. Says the Rambam, just go out, look at what God gave us. And when you realize what God gave us, wow, you will be filled up with happiness and love to God. And he tells a story about the Admor Lim Zatzal. That one day he was talking with one of the Hasidim, and he told him, you know, I want to tell you something. I was so happy this morning coming out of shul. And when I was going out and I saw all the trees and the fruits, I wanted to bless God. But I knew I cannot bless God without having fruit to eat. You know, you're not allowed. So I took an apple and I blessed. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, borei pri ha'etz. Wow, so happy. This Chosik came out and says, wow, what a big lesson I learned. Till now I thought that when I want to eat, I take the apple and I bless God that he gave me the apple. Now I learned that when I want to bless God, I take an apple and I bless him. Think about it. It's two ways to think about the same thing. If we think positive, everything is going to change and we can keep our gates in the right way. All the best and happy month and Chodesh Tov to everyone.